Welcome back to TechHub.training. This is the video solution for the Data Flow Development Challenge. If you remember, in this challenge, our supervisor started a data flow and has asked us to finish it. The end goal will have our data flow read in this list of transactions, output a donut chart that will tell us the percent of the total spending for each state, as well as tell us which employee spent the most money in a single transaction at each vendor in each state. So kind of a lot that we have to do here. However, our supervisor admitted to not being great with Alteryx, and so there are some errors in this workflow that he provided for us. So let me just point out those errors really quickly, and then we'll move into the solution. So it looks like up here, our supervisor was filtering out the transactions to include just the transactions associated to each allocation. So we have the corporate transactions all flowing through here. This is after they have been joined. The Washington transactions are flowing out here, Oregon here, but we see that in the California we have a lot more flowing out. We have Arizona, Utah, so there must be an error in here. If we look over here in the configuration for this tool, we see that the filter is set to allocation does not equal California. That's going to be a problem because it means that California is flowing down into the workflow and everything that should flow down is ending here. So let's change this to equals California. You can see when we run this again, now we have California transactions flowing out here, Idaho is flowing here, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona. So now it looks like our filters are working properly. The second error is down here in the donut chart portion. So to get the percentage of each state's spending as a total of, or as a percentage of the total spend, we'll need to calculate total spend. So you can see in this summarize tool here, our supervisor is counting the amount column. What this is doing is just counting how many values are in the amount column in our entire data set, which we already know is going to be 5,000 because there are 5,000 rows. This is not right. This should be a sum formula. We should be summing the total amount in the amount column. And then down here, I believe this one is properly just grouping by the allocation and then summing the amount for each allocation. And the append field brings it all together. And in the formula tool, we see that we'll need to change the name up here to total. Oh, and we'll uncheck that one as well, the old one. So now you can see that our formula is properly giving us the percentage of the state total over the total. So those are the two errors that were built into the spreadsheet. So let me walk you through the solution that I came up with now, just really quickly. First, we take their transactions and our allocations, and we join them together on property so that each transaction has an allocation associated. I then chose to use the select tool just to make sure that all the data types are correct. We already walked through the summarize tools, the append, and the formula. And so now I'll just show you the interactive chart tool. I took those data values and I threw them into the interactive chart tool, created a new layer, and just used the state total as my values, and then the allocation as my data labels. And then I just played around with the formatting a little bit to make the colors how I wanted, hot and cold. And so there's no specific format that you need to have for this chart. But just playing around with these different, different tools in the interactive chart will allow you to format the chart as you'd like. And then I create a browse tool here just so that we can output the chart and see it quickly. Going into the portion where we find out which employee spent the most in a single transaction at each vendor, we did the filtering and we made sure that it was correct in the previous workflow, just filtering based off of the allocation. And then each allocation just follows the same process to get to our answer. So I'll just walk through the Oregon tab here. So I chose to do a summarize and group by vendor and find the max amount for each vendor. So you see that in Oregon, the largest transaction amount for XYZ Corporation was $49.50, and so on for the different vendors. Then I use a join tool, and you can see that I'm pulling from the same data table as the summarize tool took in for both my left and right. So I joined first on vendor and then on max amount equals amount. What this is doing is essentially, well, let me explain it this way. I also chose to pull out all of the unnecessary information. This way, the data table is going to be a little bit more clean for our analysis. And so joining on vendors makes sure that each transaction is being joined to one of these 10 rows. And obviously there's going to be a lot of transactions for each vendor. And so I added a second join on max amount equals amount. So this is going to pull just the one transaction that is associated with this max transaction amount. And it would have included all of these other tabs, or all these other columns, but I chose to exclude them just so I could find which employee it was. And then a browse tool, just to show us that the transaction that we found, XYZ Corporation of $49.50 from the summarize tool, was employee number 14. And then I just completed that same structure for all of the allocations going forward. So hopefully that makes sense, and I am interested to see if you chose to follow the format that the supervisor had started, or if you chose to solve it a completely different way. So thanks for participating, and we'll see you in the next challenge.